Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. Today is a very exciting day for me. It's kind of a momentous thing because this is the beginning of my first ever full week of podcasts. Now, if you've been listening in, I promised as soon as my podcast got 1,000 downloads that I would do a week of podcasts. That means one every single day for 7 days. And what I plan to be doing through this is to mix up the messages, have some content that's both educational, some that's inspirational, and maybe some that's a little bit of both. I want everything to be within the message of overcoming graduation. And since I don't currently have an interview scheduled for you guys next week, since I'm off in Shanghai and I've been here for 2 weeks already, I have one more week before I head back. I figured this would be a great way to make sure that you guys still have great content to come back to, listen into, and enjoy. So today is a hugely, hugely exciting podcast, and I'm trying to avoid screaming about how excited I am because I don't want you to get feedback in the mic. But today is when I'll be talking about the completion of my book. Now, my book started over 2 years ago, and it was something that I had wanted to do my entire life. It was one of those things I always said, I would love to write a book. I had always enjoyed writing. In growing up, taking creative writing classes was always a therapeutic, fun, exciting thing for me. I found stories to be fascinating, and creating them was a really invigorating experience for me. So when you heard about authors publishing their books and their words touching millions of people around the globe, the idea is kind of intoxicating. And all my life I said, I'd love to do that, I'd love to do that. But did I ever take action on it? No. And the reason why? In my mind, success and these types of accomplishments were something that came later, right? That you look at the successful authors, these people who are New York Times bestsellers, Pulitzer Prize winners, they have 20 bestsellers, and they're generally a lot older. When you're graduating college, you look at these people, you look at what most of us define as success, whether it be a substantial amount of wealth, an ability to travel, freedom to do what it is that you want, and we assume that it's going to take time because it has taken time for others. Now, what I've found as I've researched overcoming graduation, as I've dove into personal development, that success, well, one is such an ambiguous term and can mean something completely different to every single one of us. But also, there is no reason to wait for success or to decide that your ability to accomplish a specific goal is reliant on someone else's time frame in which they completed it. Many times I found myself going, you know what, later on when I'm older, when I'm successful, when I have time, when I have money, I'll do all those things. And what is all that? Honestly, that was procrastination. That was a way for me to avoid diving in, taking a plunge, and venturing out into unclear, unsafe waters. That's something that was not familiar to me. And so what I found was that throughout my life, this is not just for the book, but the book was one of those big things that as soon as I said it in my mind, as soon as I said I would love to write before I even finished the sentence, that negative voice would pop up and go, yeah, but you can't. And then I would just go, okay, and move on with my day. Only through starting to get involved with personal development, to starting to challenge the mindsets and the ideas that existed in my head, did I start to recognize that I had the ability to change the way I perceive these things. So all of a sudden, the next time it came up, the next time I said, oh man, I'd love to write a book, all of a sudden the voice said, yeah, but you can't. And another voice said, why? And then the negative voice said, well, you don't know the first thing about it. How would you even get started? You'll never find an editor. How are you going to get it published? Printed books are going away. There's not even that many publishers left, and on and on and on. And then at that point again, I went, okay, yeah, you're right. Continued to push into personal development. And I remember distinctly the day that this happened. I remember distinctly because what happened was I was starting to grow myself. I was starting to challenge my own thoughts and beliefs and to focus more on the positives and the potential that exists inside me. And it's something that exists inside all of us. It's just we're not taught to look for it. We're not taught to identify it or embrace it. And so what I did was I had that same conversation. I remember seeing on TV someone talking about publishing a book. I forget whether it was a commercial or a TV show. And I said, wow, I'd love to publish a book. And here comes voice, right? You can't do that. Why not? Well, what about all these things? What about the publisher? What about, and then that positive voice stopped the other one and said, no, listen to my question specifically. What is stopping you from just writing a book right now? And for the first time, that negative voice didn't have an answer. For the first time, I said, there's nothing stopping me from writing this book. All the other things about publishing, about cover design, about marketing have nothing to do with that goal that I set. So all of a sudden I said, there's nothing stopping me. That goal is right here within my reach at this moment. I could start writing a book. I could literally pick up a napkin, pick up a pen, and write, "The boy went," and I would have started my book. And trust me, that would change through edits and edits and edits, but that could be the start. You could write a title. You could write a character's name, and all of a sudden you've put something on paper, you've typed something up, and now you have created something physical that is working you towards your dream. It is right there, and that is the beginning of your book. Far too often, it's like so many other goals in our life, we look at the idea of writing a book, right? Writing a 300-page novel. And that is daunting. I mean, even reading a 300-page novel is overwhelming for most people, and I know for me it is. And it's like, and only recently have I started to work on overcoming that. But when you say, hey, could you write one sentence for your book? People go, yeah, but that's so easy, so why waste my time? It's amazing. It is amazing how we convince ourselves that big goals are too big and small goals aren't worth it. Small goals aren't worth our time, and big goals are just too audacious and crazy, and they're so far out of our scope of what's possible at this point that we just kind of shut them both out. What ends up happening is we spend life in a perpetual cycle of not doing shit. We just procrastinate, we tell ourselves we're not good enough, when all of that is bullshit. All of that is nonsense. Because what does it take to achieve the kind of success that the people that you emulate have? What does it take to get there? Conscious steps every day. Conscious steps that are small, that begin somewhere. It always has to start somewhere. And the guy who maybe has the financial health that you want, or the relationship that you want, or the trappings of success, whatever it is, maybe it's just the confidence. They had to start by doing one thing that built up their confidence. The thing that earned them the first dollar to get to $1 million so they could travel the world and live the life they wanted. They had to talk to one girl to ask for one date to eventually get to the relationship that they got. So whatever it is that you want to do right now is within reach, but you have to break it down and define small daily steps that are going to help you get there. So with this book, I said, what's stopping me? And all of a sudden, for the first time, I said nothing. And so I know what you're thinking, right? So I grabbed a pen and I wrote away and I just started writing, and this book just started to come together. Not even close. So even after having that realization, even having that empowering thought, that clarity that I could do it right now, the next thought was, I will start tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be the perfect day because I'm kind of tired right now. I don't really want to get started. I want to be in a good mindset when I'm writing. So let me just wait a day. Tomorrow it's going to be awesome. What happened? 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks passed, and every day I was tired. Every day I wasn't in the right mood or the right mindset, and so I just dismissed it every single day. Finally, after 2 weeks, I was exhausted. It was later than I wanted it to be. I said, oh man, I'm already not going to get enough sleep tonight. It should have been in bed 2 hours ago. I got to eat still. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then again, that positive voice spoke up, thank God, and said, write one sentence. That's all you got to do to start this. And once you've written one sentence, you're going to get that emotion and that inertia to push forward and start to build this thing, because you got to put down one brick to build the wall. You got to start somewhere. So finally, that night, I opened up my computer. I believe I was even sitting in bed, and I wrote the first sentence. I had the title in mind. I had the character's name in mind. I'd been thinking about this thing, and I wrote the first sentence. Sitting in bed, I closed my computer, I lay down, I turned off the light. That was it. That was how this book began. A book that began like that is currently 300 pages. It is thousands and thousands of words. It's been developing over 2 years. I've gone through 7 full edits of the book, and it started at 65 pages in Microsoft Word. After my first push through with my editor, it went to 115, and then when it got shrunk to book size, it grew to 296 pages. Now it's over 300. So that was the first step that got me to moving towards this book. And yes, the book is called The First Step. So you can imagine what some of the content's going to be about. So that was the beginning. Then I made a commitment to write something every day, even if it was just one word. That way, no matter how small the progress was, that meant every day I was making some kind of progress towards my goal. And so for the first few weeks, I kept up with that. I felt motivated. I was inspired. Oftentimes, writing one word would lead to 3 paragraphs, 2 pages, 5 pages. Crazy amounts of progress, way more than I expected from my small goals. And so, sorry for the emails coming in. But so then after that time, I'm looking at my progress. I'm saying every day I got to do something. Every day has got to be moving forward. And eventually I hit a point where I wasn't as consistent, and I didn't do it every day, and it petered off. So I was still keeping progress, but it was once every couple days. And working through my book was always exciting. It was interesting to be developing a character and a plot and deciding what message I wanted to be weaved through the entire story, and how am I going to do this, and discovering how difficult it is to learn how to say the same thing different ways so that your reader isn't reading the exact same thing over and over. So as I'm going through this process, now I can start asking these other questions of how am I going to publish it? How am I going to find an editor? And guys, with the internet, anything is possible. Literally anything is possible if you're willing to commit the time. You can find resources, you can find contacts, you can reach out to people, you can pay for services. There's anything out there. So going through the process, I discovered that I felt self-publishing was the best route for me. I wanted to get the book out to people as quickly as possible because I felt that through my personal development journey, I had learned so many things about myself I had wished I'd known when I was younger. And so I thought that getting this book out there with these messages could help younger people not feel the same fear, doubt, insecurity, and worry about the future that most of us feel all the time, and some of us never let go of because we're not taught how to. We don't know, and it's not part of the school curriculum to teach you about pursuing your passion and finding your purpose. So I hoped that by putting this book out there, I could help with that. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to self-publish. Now I want to find an editor. So step by step, piece by piece, I keep writing, and I say, I'm going to find an editor. How the hell do you do that? I had no clue. I didn't know anybody that was an editor. I didn't have a family friend or like a family member that had done it. What I did know was that one of my best friend's moms had published a book. So I reached out to him. He put me in touch with his mom, and she said, I'll put you in touch with my editor. I talked to her. I said, if I'm looking to do a novel, and here's roughly the amount of pages, and here's the content, and here's what I want to do, what's your price range? Now at this point, a college graduate with $80,000 in student loans and very, very little flexible income and a very small savings. She said, well, a book that size, that length, this type of content, it would run anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 depending on how much editing you wanted. And I went, oh shit. There goes my dream, right? You know, maybe in 10 years, maybe never, because that number was, both those numbers, 5,000 was insane, 15,000 was impossible in my mind. So I said, oh shit. And I said, game over. All right, well, I guess I was like, I can still write the thing, but getting it published is just way down the road. But then she followed up and said, you know what? But I do have a friend. She said, but I couldn't do your book. And the reason is I don't know this content and this genre well enough to honestly say that I could be the right editor for you. But I do have a friend who specializes in this. She teaches writing. She's worked at major publishing houses. She's published her own books. So I can put you in touch with her. And I said, great. And even though in the back of my mind there was that doubt, like, oh, it's probably going to be even more expensive, my parents, my mom and dad, always both said to me, it never hurts to ask. It never hurts to make it known what you want and to ask. Because, again, you're not asking for handouts or freebies. You're just asking questions to learn more. So it never hurts to ask. So all I can do is find out the number. And when you ask, you find out whether or not you find out what the number is. So if you have a price range and your biggest dream is going to cost you $50,000, well, now you have a number. Now you know what you have to work for. Now you can plan and fundraise and change your spending habits and maybe pick up a second job or do whatever it takes. Because if you truly want success, if you truly want to make a difference in this world and have an impact on thousands, millions, or deep impacts on a small group, you've got to be willing to go all in and to commit yourself. That means doing the research. That means understanding the plan, the process it's going to take you to get there. You don't have to have all the steps clear at the beginning, but step by step, you're going to have to work through them. So in doing this, I said, okay, let's follow up. I got to talk with this editor, and God bless her, because she said there have been so many people that have helped her along the way that she wants to pay it forward. So she negotiated the price with me, and it was still a huge investment for me, the biggest I had ever made in my life up to that point. But I said, I can do that. We worked out a monthly payment structure. We worked on a way to make it happen. So now I had an editor. I sent off the first draft that I had completed to her to get feedback. I sent an excerpt, actually. She gave me feedback, and I reworked the book from like 65 to 115 pages in Microsoft Word. Then, so I had gone through about 4 edits at that point. Through my process with my editor, Sherry, we were going to go through 3 full content edits, which is where you're looking at the flow of the story and the structure and how the story plays together and ties together, and making sure that something that's referenced earlier in the book ties back in if it's supposed to later, and all these different pieces. Then we were going to pass this off to a friend of hers for final proofreading before publishing. So the process began, and months and years passed of editing, of going through. And I will tell you that one of the craziest things about it is you think that as you go through your edits, you think that as you get closer and closer to finishing, it's going to be more and more polished, so you're going to be less attached or less worried that this is about to go out there because, all right, now it's almost perfect, so now it's ready to go. I can say from my experience and from what I've heard from other authors, the exact opposite is true. The closer it gets to being out in the world, the more real it becomes, and the more terrifying it becomes to put your words out there. I tossed and turned over certain sentences for 20, 30, 40 minutes. I doubted my message. I lost sight of why I even started this book in the first place. I got frustrated about the timing. I was like, this should be faster. It should be published already. It's amazing what your internal voice and your internal dialogue can do. And so the biggest thing, that the most important piece, was to continue to push through. Even though I wasn't certain, even though I was scared and doubted my ability to make an impact, doubted the message, doubted if anyone was going to be touched by this book, if anyone was even going to pick it up. And my dad said something to me that was so critical. It was so important. And I mean, I'll really never forget it. Because I said, when you work on a book with something, a project for years, things change in your life. You are open up to new insights, new ideas, new concepts. And so all of a sudden, I hadn't edited in a while. I got the next draft back from my editor, and now it's my turn to dive back in. And I said to my dad, I'm going through, and I'm like, Dad, I have so many more ideas and so many lessons I want to share, and I want to just put everything into this book. And what if I don't incorporate an important lesson? And he said, Brian, save it for the next book. He said, you have got plenty in this book already, and this book is going to touch people, and you can't put everything in there. Your experiences are going to change. You're going to learn new things. You're going to grow throughout this whole process. What's important for you is that you complete this book and put it out into the world. He goes, save it for the next one, because you got to get one out there in order to start being an author and to get more books out there. So that lesson was huge for me, because it just goes to show sometimes you need to complete something. Sometimes you need to release it, let it go into the world, be vulnerable, and share it with people in order to really discover what it can do and what you can do, discover your potential. So that went on. That was huge for me. And there were so many other lessons that came through writing this book. And I can't put them all in one podcast, so I'm sure I'll do more. But what I want to jump forward to is the end process, because my mom inspired me in the beginning in how to, both my dad and my mom helped me determine how to get the book started. But my mom said something that was so critical. She said, I said, how do I even begin? How do I decide on something? There's so much I could write about. I could write about anything. It could be fake. It could be real. It could be anything. And my mom said, write what you know and write what you love. So for you guys that are listening, whatever it is that you want to do what you love, do what's in your heart, and do what you know. Go for it. And if it's not something, if there's something you want to do that you don't know, learn it. Reach out, ask, connect, because there are so many people out there willing to help you if they know what you want. So, as you know, my mom got diagnosed with cancer during the writing of this book. And that was the hardest experience, and still is the hardest and worst experience I've had to go through in my life. And it threw off my progress, my focus. There were months and days and weeks I just didn't feel like doing anything, let alone writing. I didn't feel like my heart was in the right place to write a motivational book. I didn't feel like I could do anything right. I didn't feel like everything was terror, fear, and doubt. And so finally, I knew my mom would want me to do this. I knew my mom would want me to finish this project. She was so proud of me. She read it and was excited and gave me feedback. And she is the reason that the book starts off the way it does. Based off her feedback, the book starts in a totally different way than it started originally. And it was so critical for me to get through this. And the further I got, the more doubts I had. The closer I got to finishing, the more I thought people wouldn't listen, that people wouldn't care. I worried that I would fail my Team Triumph, the group that I'm going to be donating the money to from what I make. The first 3 months, I'll be donating everything I make to my Team Triumph. And then after that, 10% of every book sold will go to my Team Triumph for the entirety of the book's existence. And so I worried I would fail them, that I wouldn't bring money in, I wouldn't spread the word. And more, the doubts came. And the last month, leading up to the completion of the book, I could not have felt more awful. I felt scared, sad, alone. I felt like I wasn't connecting with people. I felt like my weight and health was at the worst it's ever been. And emotionally, I was just a mess. I felt like I was kind of half sick all the time. I felt lack of energy. And I realized all of this was from not taking care of myself, but the realization came after completion. So I pushed through and I kept working on the book, and I forced myself to finish because I knew this was something I was meant to do. And the day after I finished, it was like I was a completely different person. A whole new world opened up because all of a sudden I could see all of the lessons that I hadn't seen in the months before. And my friend Christian Jensen, who I interviewed just a couple episodes ago on the podcast, said something truly profound to me. And he said, Brian, do you think that the reason you're feeling so down might be because there's so many good things happening in your life and you can't share them with your mom in the way that you're used to? And it was like a light bulb hit me that I've got this new job, I'm traveling more, I'm writing a book, I've started this podcast, I have a lot of great things going on. And it was so weird to me. I was like, why do I feel miserable? I have so many things to be thankful for. And that made me even more miserable that I was getting mad about not being appreciative. So when Christian said that, it became real. It became so clear that I wanted my mom to be here for all this. I love incorporating my family. My family is the most important thing in my life. My brother, my mom, my dad, and my brother's wife, of course, because she's now part of the family too. And not having a piece of that to share in this was so hard. But realizing that made it clear, okay, that's why I've been feeling this way. And then all the other lessons came through about the importance of seeing things through, because I had to prove to myself that I could do it. That was one of the biggest doubts. That negative voice when I got close and I was terrified said, you can't do this. You'll never finish. This is never going to happen. So finishing it, putting the final period on for the final edit and sending it off to my editor for her to make the final revisions, that was proof to myself that I could do it. And in doing that, I realized, okay, I can help inspire others to do this because now I've finished it. And yes, we still got 1 or 2 more steps before it gets published, but that step and that completion, guys, it is so critical to celebrate your successes along the way. You got to be able to look back at how far you've come and see the joy and experience true euphoria on how far you've come. No matter how small your steps have been, that is monumental. When you're working to improve and working towards a goal, that is incredible. You're going to inspire people, you're going to inspire yourself, and you're going to make a difference even without trying to, just by living the life that you want. So I wanted to share this message to get started. I wanted to tell you guys about how publishing this book and getting things going for me has been just so monumental. And I have more to share. There's going to be more lessons about the book, so we might do a part 2, part 3. But I wanted to kick off the week of podcasts with this one. I wanted to thank all of you out there who have been supporting me because it has been monumental. This book is one of the biggest things that has helped me get through losing my mom and being able to know that I've kept my promises to her. Because before I close, that was one of the biggest negative pieces in my mind. 2 days before my mom passed away, I promised her I would do everything in my power to be the person I'm meant to pursue my dreams, to live a life that inspires and to impact people. And at the core of all of this, deep in my heart, I felt, without even thinking it, because this was a subconscious thing, I didn't realize it until I completed the book and the elation spread over me, but I made the most important promise of my life to my mom 2 days before she died. And me not finishing that book, in my mind, subconsciously, would be me breaking the most important promise I had ever made in my life. Now, I know my mom would tell me, Brian, that nothing matters to me but your happiness. I want you to be happy and healthy. She wouldn't care about anything. I've told people I'm 25 now, and if she was still here, I could make her a macaroni painting, and she would act like I just painted her the Mona Lisa. So my mom's motto was simple pleasures are the best. But to me, it was so important that I finished this for her, for that promise, and for myself, and for the people that I've promised that I would. But that's what it all came down to. So if you're struggling through something tough, if there is something that is really eating at you right now, take a step back and look at why it is affecting you that way. Because if it is putting negative pressure and negative emotion in your life, that's going to limit your creativity and the energy that you have to apply to whatever that is. Whether it's love in your relationships, whether it's a goal or a dream, take the time to step back and look at what it is that really is driving the emotions, and also remind yourself why you're doing it. Because after I finished, I started getting all this excitement and motivation about how this might impact my Team Triumph, how more people might be introduced to the cause and get involved. And I started to see the joy and the magic and remember why I started this in the first place. So be sure to be clear on what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and understand the emotions involved, because they're going to be up and down. There's going to be good times and bad times. There's going to be times when you have to write when you don't feel like it. And just put it out there because you know you're meant to. Guys, there is something you're meant to do. I'm speaking to every listener out there. There's something you're meant to do that will drive positive change and impact people's lives. There is something in your heart that only you possess, a story that only you have that is there to help someone in this world. So stop holding back. Stop procrastinating. Stop telling yourself you're not good enough, because you have it in your heart. You have everything you need to make a difference in someone's life, just by being wonderfully, beautifully, and uniquely you, and embracing your story in all the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the shitty times, and the glorious times. That is your story, and that is yours to share and own and bring to the world. So, guys, I am jacked up. I am so excited. I cannot wait to publish this book and share it with all of you, and I can't wait to see what it brings and what more comes of it, because I know there's going to be more lessons as I continue through this process. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting me in this book. I hope this inspires you to get started and get moving on whatever your big goal and dream is. And we got 6 more episodes coming this week, so get excited, get ready, and let's buckle up for a fantastic week. I love you guys, and have a great rest of your day or night whenever you're listening to this. I love you guys. Peace out. Peace out. Peace out.